Hi, everyone. It's Stephanie with the patient story, and I hope you're doing well wherever you're joining us from. I am so thrilled to be introducing our guest today. She's been out there, she's been trying to get her voice to lift others, and I'm so happy that we're able to do it today with her again. So, welcome to Shyreece Pompey.
Hi, how is everyone? Hi, Stephanie, good to see you.
Yes, it's good to see you again, Shyreece. I am so excited to get this conversation going because there are just so many things about your story I think people will, one, be inspired by, in addition to learning from. So, without further ado, I do want to ask, as I do with people, we are so much more than our diagnosis. Okay. So I'd
Yes.
like, and I'd love, Shyreece, for you to introduce yourself outside of that cancer context. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, awesome. One of the things that I like to talk about when I talk about myself is that I loved teaching before I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And so I loved teaching so much that it became a part of me. So now, even after diagnosis, that I still teach. So the art of teaching, the philosophy of teaching, everything about teaching is what I loved. So I did that for probably about 17 years professionally, and even in other aspects in the community. If there was a teacher needed for something or a class to be taught, I taught. So I'm a bona fide teacher to heart. And I think that part of me, I don't want to cry right now, it's too early to cry. A part of me, that part of me will always be. It'll always be, it'll never go away. That is my legacy. Everything that I've had to overcome, teaching is it for me. And the people that I come across today, I still teach, but in very different ways, in ways that will allow them to be their best person.
And I can't wait to get more into your story and your legacy. So let's go ahead and start off. We're talking today, Shyreece, about how you eventually were diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer and how you're thriving today. But let's rewind. I know it was March 14th, 2014. So that's almost, we're talking about 8 years. And I know it was a little bit ago, but could you rewind back to that time when you started feeling those symptoms? What were the first symptoms and what got you to say, I need to go get this checked out?
Wow, great question. And it's going to continue to flow with the first question you asked me. What do I love to do is teach. Well, I was teaching that day, preparing the students for one of the most important tests ever in the state. It's so, as I was teaching them, I took a brain break with them. So we're dancing, we're doing the wobble, we're doing the wobble, we're doing the wobble. And then all of a sudden I got so heavy. My arms got heavy and I got tired and fatigued. And I had to tell the kids, I said, y'all got to sit down. I don't know what's going on, but y'all sit down, get out your book and read. And I needed to sit down for a minute. And there was a throb. There was like a skip a beat in my chest. And it had to throb and calm down. I said, I don't know what that was, but it really scared me. I was scared. And I said, well, something's not quite right. And then I heard a wheezing sound that came out of my body. I said, oh, that's something that I'm not controlling and it's coming out of me. What is that? Long story short, probably about a week later after that, I ended up in the ER room. And the doctor told me in the ER doctor said, you are not going anywhere. Matter of fact, we got a room ready for you. And I don't even trust your husband to take you to the hospital. So what we're going to do is put you in an ambulance, Shyreece, and take you to another location. That was the beginning of my journey to being diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer.
Wow. Wow. Talk about going from like the highest of highs with that energy, dancing with the kids, and then feeling all that. Okay, so Shyreece, you're in the ER, and then they're like, we need to take you, we need to get you to the right care. You're going in the ambulance. When was the first inkling that you were dealing with cancer?
The first inkling that I knew that I was dealing with cancer was when all the tests it actually ran pointed to absolutely nothing that was on the surface. It wasn't pneumonia. It wasn't because I'm like, come on, everyone, I got to get back to work. Give me some cough syrup. Give me your cough syrup so I can get back to work. And no cough syrup ever came. EKG, hooked me up, see what was going on with my heart. Perfectly fine. Nothing was coming up. I'm like, okay, I'm good. I'm good. I'm getting excited. I'm good. But then they said, you know what? We have to go on the inside. We're going to do a VATS surgery on you to drain the liquid that is crushing your lung. Now things are getting serious. I'm like, ooh, this sounds deep. So we're going to scrape some tissue and we're going to send it off. So that's when I'm like, whoa, boy, this doesn't sound good, because you're not finding something on these preliminary tests, and yet something is still gravely wrong. Then now you need biopsy tissue. That's when it was like, whoa, boy. So yeah, that's when I knew that something deeper may come out of this. So the test did come back that it was a malignant cancer, and the biomarker of it and the FISH test, FISH, it indicated that I had an ALK positive mutation. So yes, that was the beginning of one of the most frightening journeys, but being the kind of person that I was, we'll talk about that later. I don't know why that didn't faze me like that. I was so gung-ho on about doing something else. So yeah, I wanted to press through it. I'm like, cancer, what is cancer? Okay.
Like, let's go, right?
Yeah, let's give me whatever cancer needs to be dealt with, and I'm good. Let's go. Oh boy, how I wish it was that simple.
Right, right. No, I know we all have
Yeah.
that thought, I think. Shyreece, before we get too far into this, I know with people, that moment of diagnosis is just so impactful, and something, no matter how many years have passed, sticks with you, right? So you had gotten all these scans and tests done. How long did it take for the first diagnosis? I'm just talking about the basic, you have cancer diagnosis without knowing the details. How long did it take, and how did you get through waiting? Because as you know, there's all that scan anxiety.
It took 2 weeks to get an actual diagnosis. So after all of those tests, and this is hospitalization. So I always go back, this is a hospitalization type of moment, because my lungs were crushing. That was an indicator that something gravely, seriously was wrong. And it was more than just a cough. It was more than just heaviness. And so, yes. So 2 weeks after hospitalization, on the last day, when the hospitalist came at my bedside and he said, Shyreece, I'm so sorry. It's cancer and it's stage 4. So that's when the first cry, I call it, came, the first cry. And I cried on the phone with my cousin, who's a nurse, and she was living in another state. But when I posted on social media that I had to do a VATS, she called me immediately and knew that. She said, wait a minute, what's going on? And then I shared with her right then that they found cancer and it's malignant.
Such an intimate moment, right? Because it's
Yes.
you never imagined it would happen. You're incredibly vulnerable in that time. How did
Very
you,
vulnerable.
how did you, I know it's hard to process anything in the beginning or in that moment, but how did you, after that cry, like what's your advice to people on how to help process something like that?
The type of person that you are before cancer is important to help you endure that moment. So part of me, yes, I cried and I broke down, became very vulnerable. And every conversation that I ever known that I had with, and then this is where I bring in God, the God component. It happens in almost every traumatic moment. It's like, oh, God, I thought that this about my life and what is happening. And so in that moment, you want to find reasoning that is spiritual, medical, every kind of component of philosophy kind of comes into your mind and heart right then. So now I'm reaching for character, right? I'm reaching for moral. I'm reaching for something that can ground me through this moment as to what is being shared with me and who's there for me. Who can I call? I mean, the doctors are here delivering information, but they are not the ones I want to talk to right now. Who can I call and what can I reach for? And so in that moment, I stayed there for a moment, but then something on the inside, that part of me is like, okay, fine. If this is what it is, then what's next? Bring me, what's the solution? Somebody, I'm like the lady in Wiz now, the Wiz. Don't bring me no more bad news. That's where I'm at. Okay, so if it's chemo treatment, that's what they brought to me. That was next, chemotherapy treatment. I said, I'm not waiting. Bring it to me now. Look it up in the machine. How hard can this be? Let's do this. And then now looking in hindsight, I was like Superwoman going quickly down by the head and I didn't know it. Chemotherapy, intravenous chemotherapy was hard. They loaded me up. And I was like, boom, took it. And eventually I started getting weaker and weaker. And then I really had to reevaluate some things and even the D word. So not diagnosis, but if I'm going to die, then let me start preparing my funeral.
That's so powerful. I mean, getting hit with a diagnosis like that, it's advanced. It's lung cancer. I mean, all the things that go through your head, right? And at the time too, a lot of people, I've spoken with who are lung cancer patients. Some have histories of smoking and some don't. Regardless, there's a shock, and then sometimes there's even more shock because what we're told is, a lot of the literature, and education out there has been history of smoking, lung cancer. But you don't think, well, if I don't have a history of smoking, I'm fine, right? So what was going on for you in that moment?
Just that I don't have a history of smoking. Where did this come from? And as I continue to grow and learn, my cancer, the lung cancer, and the rarity of it and the complexity of it, it's absolutely not at all smoking related. But also within that, gave me an opportunity to heal on some very mental, spiritual issues and emotional issues that I've never dealt with in my adulthood that stemmed from my childhood. And I needed that to happen because I needed to know the best treatment plan for me. If it was going to work, I needed to be centered and whole. I needed to be clear. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. Just the last point on this, Shyreece, and thank you for sharing all of that, because I think there's tension sometimes when people talk about the aspect of, well, history of smoking and the first reaction that people get when they hear you have lung cancer. And I heard from you before, friends in some families saying, oh gosh, you must have been a closet smoker. And what do we need to do to break through the stigma here?
Oh, wow. First of all, I really had some of the most challenging statements to me, and that was one. When did you smoke? I didn't know you smoked. That stigma alone was something to deal with. And I tried to find the most, because again, based on my character, I tried to find the most Christian way to respond. Or without getting really, really upset and seeing my other side. So, but then again, it became a teaching moment. I said, great. I get a chance to teach about my type of cancer and my type of mutation. It's not smoking related. I start there. And then I also let them know that I've never smoked. And yes, I grew up around a smoking environment, but that is not the cause of this cancer. And I had to go into a teachable moment and also letting them know that no, I do not look down on anyone who smokes, but I know that that's not my story. And for you to understand that smokers are just not the only ones who can get lung cancer, I need you to know me. I need you to hear what I'm saying to you from me, and then going to teaching about these different biomarkers. So that's one of the major approaches, is that I use it as a teaching moment now. So, and see, that's what I was trying to tell you before, Stephanie, is that my teaching skills and degree and everything about it and my talent for it, it never goes away.